Today we are in yet another new spot for the videos. It is called Keystone Point. It's a pretty pricey area, I'm not gonna lie, guys. It's gonna disappoint the ones that wanna see affordable. This is not affordable. But the reason I wanted to come here is because things here have gone up so much in value. You know, I remember when houses here were 700,000 to $1 million, and even that sounds crazy. Now most of these houses are $2.5 million to $5 million around here. It's insanity. Now, a good chunk of them are waterfront, so at least they have that. But of course, that comes with its own set of problems as well. But the reason I'm here is because just to look at something new, and we can talk about all things housing market while we're checking out a new spot. Now, one thing we keep seeing is this warring narrative back and forth between people of you have one set of the camp saying housing market's not going to crash, everything's going to be fine, inventory's still low, interest rates are already starting to go down, and then on the other side you have actual economists, not just me, saying that no, I don't think so. We haven't even seen the recession yet, and we can easily see home prices go down at minimum another 10% this year. Well, wait a minute, guys. If that economist is right, and it goes down another 10% this year, it already went down 10% last year in the last 6 months of the year. So if it goes down 10% this year, that's already 20% down, right? Not bad. But just like me, this economist, Kenneth Rogoff, he says that home prices are very likely to continue declining throughout the year, and that the Fed is going to continue to keep interest rates high. He's predicting that the Fed may keep the federal funds rate at around 3.5% for years to come. Well, we haven't even reached 5% yet, so the rate hikes are not even done. So imagine once they start bringing them down, but it doesn't go back to zero, which is a good thing, really, because they should never be at zero to begin with. There should be a cost and a consequence and a risk to borrowing money, and when the interest rates are at virtually 0%, it pretty much eliminates all that risk, which is why we saw so many people go out and buy during this time. Not only that, but it makes being able to afford something very inexpensive. But on the total opposite end of the spectrum, you have other people that think everything's going to turn around later this year. In fact, there's a guy from Bank of America, his name's Curtis Nagel. He says the housing market's going to bottom in the first half of 2023, and it's all going to be up from there. And he's taking his own bets on this by saying that Zillow is now a good stock to buy again because it's totally undervalued. Because he's saying that the valuation for Zillow is low now compared to what it was in the past, so it has room to grow. I mean, I guess some people just don't get the news flash, guys. I mean, I feel like when people say things like this, it means that they're not really watching the market, because you don't have to be a genius to see that prices overall are coming down. And Mr. Nagel is also pointing to the fact that mortgage rates have been coming down, which they have been, guys. And he thinks that by the end of the year, they're going to be down to 5.25%. Maybe he's right. I don't know. I think it's too soon in the year to kind of make a prediction on where interest rates are going to be by the end of this year, especially since there's so many unknowns right now. But you're always going to have people that just don't listen or just don't want to look at the broader strokes of the economy, because all you got to do is just look at this week, guys. Mortgage demand is up 28% in 1 week because the interest rates have gone down a little bit. Now, that means you have more people looking at getting pre-qualified for a mortgage again that are jumping back in to buy a house. Mortgage rates went down from 6.42% to 6.23%. And once again, those numbers are for the most well-qualified borrowers. We're talking people that have over 800 credit score, a very low debt to income ratio, and a large down payment, okay? Which also means most people aren't getting those rates. But sometimes I feel that people just need to learn the hard way in life about things, because all these people, they're not thinking about home prices going down. They're just thinking about their monthly payment. They're only focusing on that. You know, how much are these interest rates affecting my monthly payment? But they're not thinking about the price they're paying for the home. They're not thinking about the cost to maintain the home. They're not thinking about being underwater on their mortgage later this year. They're not thinking about the higher property taxes that they will pay because their purchase price was too high. They're not thinking about any of this stuff. All they're thinking right now is, I gotta get a house, I gotta get a house. This FOMO mentality once again. You know, another thing that these people are really not thinking about, especially as we're getting deeper into the recession, is layoffs, guys. Every single week, we see new stories of different companies doing layoffs. Microsoft is the latest one. They're laying off 10,000 people. I mean, think about how many that is. 10,000 people is a lot. Just in 2022, over 150,000 tech workers lost their job, and an additional 23,000 have lost their job just in the first couple weeks of this year. So as you can see, the layoffs are starting to pick up and accelerate. And it's not just the tech industry that is seeing layoffs either, but they're being the hardest hit right now. But just think about this, guys. If you're someone who's thinking about buying a house this year and you're not concerned about layoffs, at least hear me out on this point first, because there is a list of professions that are basically the first to go and the first ones to see layoffs when the recession hits. And we're almost guaranteed to see an official recession this year, especially because the Fed is keeping interest rates pretty high. Now, the first one we've already covered, tech workers. We've seen them get hit the hardest. But what about regular people's jobs? You know, everyday jobs that most people work. Well, the next one to get hit, hospitality and tourism, guys. And you're already seeing this right now with Airbnb, like we talked about before. The amount of Airbnb bookings has been dropping substantially, and that's proof right there that people are not traveling, they're not spending the money like they were before. So if you work for the airlines, or you work at a hotel, or you work for a travel agency, or other areas that are involved in tourism, you could be seeing layoffs in your field this year. The next one that sees layoffs during the recession are arts and entertainment. So you can think of things like going to the museum, concerts, different types of theater, museums, the zoo, different places like that. Do you work at one of these places? If you do, and we get hit with a hard recession, which is looking like basically a guarantee at this point, you could be the first one to go. Retail is the next one. And retail's already been getting crushed throughout the pandemic because of everybody buying more things online and just not going to the store as much. And if we get hit with a recession, guys, people that work in retail are going to be devastated from this, because in an industry that's already, you know, struggling to hang on, when you get hit with, you know, people not spending the money anymore, that's it. Say goodbye. And of course, another one that we have to mention here is if you have a job in real estate. Now, let me just clarify something real quick. Most real estate agents like myself are independent contractors. So we work with a company, not for a company, if that makes sense. So for example, like I can't get laid off from my company because I don't technically work for them to begin with. If you actually work at a real estate company, like as a secretary or something like that, you could easily see your job being cut. And of course, if you are a real estate professional, then the likelihood of continuing to see sales flourish throughout the year are not looking too good for you. So I mean, just look at the statistics for real estate agents, guys. A couple years ago, average agent was selling like 4.2 houses. Now it's like 2.1. So incomes are getting cut in half. Look at this. This place is getting totally torn down. Interesting. Now, another one to watch out for, and this could easily happen to you whether it's a recession or not, is if your job can be automated. Think of certain things like different parts of the fast food industry or manufacturing, factory work, different things like this, where every single year, you know, more robots are starting to take people's places. So that's another one. And then you have service industry jobs, people like waiters and waitresses, bartenders, cooks at the restaurants. People like this are not going to have as much job opportunity in a recession, because one of the first things that gets cut when people don't have any money is they stop going out to eat, guys. So if you rely on tips, you're not going to be making those tips. If a restaurant has 4 cooks, now maybe they only need 2. Hairstylists and barbers, people don't get their hair cut as often. People that work at the casino, although I would beg to differ on that one, because I've been to the casino here, and it seems like it's always crowded, guys. No matter what's going on, people just seem to have money to burn. But this is Florida, and it's clear that people have money to be burned when we're just walking through places like this, seeing the price of these houses here. It's insane. A couple other ones to watch out for are construction jobs. You know, just like real estate, as things start to slow down, home builders have slowed down their starts If you work in construction, you might not have a job for a while. Or if you work in transportation, like cruises, or the trucking business, the railroad business, things like this, those could see a slowdown during a recession. And then of course you have car salesmen. People are not going to be buying nearly as many cars when they don't have any money. There's accountants. People are not going to be doing taxes with accountants as much. They're going to try to be cheap and do it themselves. So as you guys can see, it is a laundry list of people that could see a layoff during this recession. And we've been seeing the layoffs tick up and up and up throughout the second half of last year. And that's where I just see the disconnect, You have people rushing out to buy a house as soon as interest rates drop by, 0.1%. Like, that's something, guys. I mean, that's insanity. That just goes to show you how desperate people are and how much they're not thinking right now. But you know what? Other people's losses will be your gains, because the people who are patient throughout this and are actually planning strategically on how they're going to handle this recession and how much they're willing to pay for a property versus just, oh my God, my mortgage payment went down $50. Let me go out and buy something, That's called FOMO. I have one for rent. This place was listed for rent all the way back in June of 2022, originally for $15,000, and then 3 months later they lowered it to $12,500 in September last year, and only now in January is this place pending, and we don't even know how much they rented it for. But can you imagine having a rental sitting vacant for 6 months? That's insane. But I'm actually a little bit worried about these people that could go out and just buy a house, get in trouble and get laid off and have all these issues shortly after getting into the property, because there are other problems that can come from this. In fact, I saw this interesting study today talking about how getting laid off or losing your job is ranked as the 7th most stressful life experience, which is more stressful than a divorce and a sudden or serious impairment of hearing or vision, or even the death of a close friend. I mean, how crazy is that, guys? That's how traumatic it can be for people to lose a job, especially unexpectedly. And they say that it takes on average 2 years for people to recover from the psychological trauma of losing a job. I don't know exactly what they mean by psychological trauma. One example I can think of off the top of my head is, say you've been working in the same profession for 20 years, right? But now you lose your job and it's the recession, it's hard to get a new job, and all the new jobs that are out there that you can get pay far less than what you were making before, and is a huge step down in terms of what you're doing for a living. And the problem with that is it can cause a lot of psychological stress, because you're basically in a position, see that guy? Didn't even stop sign right here. But it puts you in this position where you either have to take a job that feels sort of beneath you or remain unemployed. And either one of those options doesn't sound very good, right? So I could see a lot of psychological stress from that for sure. And they even go as far to say that people who get laid off that don't have any pre-existing conditions, their odds of developing a new health problem rise by about 83% within the next year and a half after getting laid off. Imagine that. That is insane, guys. I've never heard of that before. And these people are more likely to get all kinds of things like heart conditions, hypertension, arthritis. They even say that getting laid off can increase your probability of suicide by like 3 times higher, which is unbelievable. The other thing they say is more likely to happen to people that get laid off is they're much more likely to develop depression, substance abuse, or acting violent towards their family or their spouse, different things like that. And as you guys can see, getting laid off can just cause all sorts of problems within your family or your personal life, let alone the financial problems that it brings along with it. That's why I don't understand the mentality of people right now just being like, oh my God, the interest rates fell 0.1%. Let's rush out and get approved for a mortgage. I mean, it's crazy, guys. Apparently they haven't heard enough buyer's remorse stories who have bought in the past couple years who are already underwater, and to buy in an environment like this when prices are coming down is just insanity. because you're basically guaranteed to go underwater on your mortgage unless you're putting down a significant down payment. We're talking 20% or more. Maybe that will keep you in the black with your house, but most people don't do that, guys. Most people put 5-10% down. So you can easily lose that in value over this coming year. And you know, something interesting about layoffs is there was an article from Newsweek back in 1996 that said once upon a time, performing massive layoffs at your company, which is basically firing 50 people or more within a 5-week period, that was not common back in the day. And that's as far back as 1996. What that meant back then is that it means you messed up your business, and now when companies do mass layoffs, their stock price goes up because now they're basically trimming the fat, right? So they're almost guaranteed to see their profitability go up. So you got to look at this from the corporate standpoint of how disposable you really are. Because if you think your company cares about you, think twice, because chances are you're just a number, and the moment that their earnings start to take a hit, you're going to be the first one to go. So who's rushing out to buy all these houses anyways? That's what I want to know. Well, there's no way to know for sure. But one thing we can do is look at some clues. And here's some data from the US Census Bureau that might point us in the right direction. Between 2019 and 2021 was basically the buying season for millennials. We saw more millennials purchase homes during those 2 years than any other time. Now, before you just say, oh, it was the pandemic that pushed this, well, sort of, guys, but let's just see what that said. From 2019 to 2021. Remember, throughout 2019, there was no pandemic, okay? So already you can't even use 2019 as an excuse saying, oh, it was the pandemic that did that. So millennials were already in the home buying season before this happened. And then it sort of just kicked things into high gear once people got stimulus checks, once interest rates went very low, and we even saw a dip in home prices there towards the beginning of 2020. And it kind of sparked the fire that we saw throughout the 2021 buying season. The interesting thing that we can draw from this, in 2022, the median age of home buyers across the United States hit a record 53 years old, guys. 53 is the median age for the majority of the people that purchased a home throughout 2022. So I'd be willing to bet that probably a lot of these people that are going out and just signing up to get these mortgages again are probably in that same age category. You know, they're older, they have a lot of life experience, and they probably think, well, you know, things have been going pretty well for a while. I'm not worried about layoffs. I have money in my savings account. I got money in the stock market account. We'll make it through it. Let's take the chance. That's my guess on what people like that are thinking, and it's probably who is going out and looking at buying right now. Because in 2022, we also saw the amount of home purchases from first-time home buyers go down from 34% down to just 26%. So last year, only 26% of the homes that were bought and throughout the entire year were from first-time home buyers. The rest were all people that have owned a home previously, which are much more likely to be in an older generation. And to me, when I look at all these things with you guys, it's just fascinating how many nuances there are to the economy, to the housing market, to really try and figure out what's going on. Because to me, this is all just one giant puzzle, and we're all trying to put it together in our own way, but we don't really ever know what exactly is going to happen. No one can predict the future exactly, right? But what we can do, and what we've been doing here, is looking at the data as it's coming out, things like this that we just talked about, to really try to determine where things are going to go next. As you guys probably know, I'm in the camp that home prices are going to continue falling throughout this year. I'm definitely not like the Bank of America guy thinking that the bottom is going to be here in the next couple months and things are going to recover. The probability of that in my mind is basically zero. Is it possible? Anything is possible. Just not likely. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you click the bell notification down below. YouTube will alert you every time I post a new video. And if you don't want to wait, check out my next one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.